let's talk about the Ultra Limited 2021. So this motorcycle I bought in January of this year, 2021, and bought it the first day it came out. Actually, we ended up, it was, I think the 19th is the official launch of the 2021 year. And so it hit the floor that day. I was in the shop to work on, get some additional parts put on my other bike, the Heritage Classic, and so my wife wanted to come with me, and because the Harley store is awesome. Anyway, so she wanted to come, and so while I was checking in and talking about what was necessary for my bike and all that stuff, she was wandering the showroom floor, and of course, like I said, it was the very first day of the new lineup. And she saw this bike, and she absolutely fell in love with it. When I was done talking with the services guy about my other bike, I went to go meet up with my wife on the floor, and she was all giddy and excited and showed me this bike. And she said, wouldn't this be awesome? We've been talking about getting a better bike anyway. It has a lot of things. She was actually talking to one of the salespeople there who was walking through all the advantages of an Ultra Limited. And my wife was already sold. She was totally sold on this bike. And by the end of the day, I had written up the paperwork. We traded in the Heritage Classic because I didn't have any room in the garage for two motorcycles. I know I should have gotten rid of the Hummer instead, and then just kept the bikes. But the point is that she fell in love with this bike, and we traded in the Heritage Classic, and we got this one. All right, so that's the story about why we bought this bike. Again, we've been talking about getting something a little bit better for traveling because we were pushing 300, 400 miles a day, and a Heritage Classic's a great bike, but 300 and 400 miles an hour, or 300 and 400 miles, you're definitely feeling it. So, like I said, I bought this bike the day that it came out. I had some work done on it. So I had the front forks replaced with shorts, and then I had the back shocks replaced with the Revo A's, the shorter version. Was it? I can't remember if it's 11 or 12. I think it's the 11 inch. Anyway, the whole idea was I needed an inch lowered, and it didn't make sense just to put a bracket on the back shocks to lower it an inch, because then it's all wonky and it's not designed that way. And so we went for a full serious replacement. I may change the front forks at some future date, but that's another topic. Anyway, so bought the new bike off the showroom floor. That was, like I said, January 19th. I currently have 14,328 miles on this bike. I'll do a screenshot later when I get home to show that I'm absolutely at that mark. So I'm right around the 15,000 mile mark for the Ultra Limited, for the 2021 Ultra Limited. And so let me walk you through what I've learned about the bike in this time period. I'll give you the advantages and the disadvantages, the things that I didn't like, the things I did like. All right, and then you guys can make up your mind whether or not this is the kind of bike that you want to move towards. All right, so let's talk about repairs. We'll start there. So repairs, there's only one thing that ended up having to be replaced, and that was the front tire. The front tire showed signs of distortion. It was warped in multiple places, and so for $50, the warranty, I had to pay $50, and it replaced that front tire. So that's the only thing that I had to replace due to a defect. I did drop the bike, and so I had some cosmetic stuff that needed to be repaired, and that's fine. Shit happens. But other than that, there hasn't been. Let me back up. I'm wrong. There were some other things that broke on this bike that I forgot about, and those were the doors by the lower fairings. Now, I don't know if it was because I dropped the bike and, both fairings had to be replaced as a result of that, and maybe I busted some of the internal mechanisms. So I'm putting that on me. I'm putting that problem on the fact that I dropped the bike, not on whether it was a defect from the dealership or from the manufacturer. So again, the only thing that we had to replace due to a defect was the front tire. All right. Now, let's talk about the height issue. If I were to do it again, and I was back on that first day in the dealership, would I have replaced the front and the front forks and the back shot so I can gain that extra inch of lowering it to the ground? And the answer is probably. When I was at the store, when I was at the dealership, and I was on the bike and I was making sure it fit me, I did not like how high it was for me. I had to basically stand on my tippy toes in order to maintain the bike. Not a good position, right? So from that perspective, it was an absolute requirement. However, because we've put almost 15,000 miles on this bike, we have had a different experience as far as the height is concerned, and that is we ride 2-up a lot, and we're fully packed a lot, right? So the weight on this vehicle, outside of the actual vehicle itself, is pushing around 400 pounds with all our gear, our clothes and our bags and the stuff we bring in our bags, the helmets and our own body weight and everything. So we're putting it almost, 400 pounds on this bike on top of that. And now when it's fully loaded and it's me and my wife on this bike, I am flat foot on the ground. In fact, right now I'm almost flat foot. So, that just tells you it only adjusts like maybe an inch. However, that inch may have made all the difference in the world in the fact that maybe I did not need to adjust the height of the bike simply because most of the time we're riding 2-up and we're riding with gear. And so the height isn't a problem because of the weight. It pushes it down automatically. And so that extra inch, while that's great, gives me an advantage when I'm solo. I don't know if it was worth it in the long run. I am 5'6", my inseam is 30 inches. And so my suggestion for anybody that's interested in buying an Ultra Limited that is concerned about height, I would actually suggest that they buy the bike, they do not get it adjusted, they go try it out and see what they normally do. If they know that they're going to be riding solo, first of all, why would you get an Ultra Limited if you're going solo, right? So if you're going solo and you'll probably end up getting you'll probably want to adjust it and lower it. And if you're riding 2-up and you're riding 2-up all the time, and that is your primary use is to travel on the thing, you might not want to get it lowered simply because there's a huge advantage to the old forks and the original shocks. I would argue that the original back shocks needed to be replaced anyway. I don't like the system that they have, and I've seen issues with it, and it's not ideal. Anyway, that's beside the point. So, and we can talk about that as far as what I don't like about it. But as far as replacements, that was one of the things that we did: front forks, back shocks, and for me it was probably worthwhile, and I would probably do it again. However, I would want to probably rethink it and test it, and make sure that the bike itself isn't too tall. They say, it's meant for like a 5'9" or something like that rider, and which is 3 inches taller than me. But anyway, I digress. All right, so front forks were replaced, back shocks were replaced. I also bought the low seat. So from the if you were to buy an Ultra Limited low, they have a special seat for that, and it's actually an inch shorter. So with the low seat and the lower shocks, I mean, I was flat foot all the time with that configuration. And the low seat is fine for 300, 400 miles. And so if you're looking just to shave an inch, maybe that's the option, is just go with the low seat. But we have done 600-mile days consistently, So in fact, I've done the Iron Butt Association, the Bun Burner, and the Iron Butt. And so 1,500 miles in 36 hours. That low seat would be absolutely miserable in that condition. We rode the low from Colorado to Daytona Beach for the rally down there. That's 1,800 miles each way. And when we got home, after riding on that low all the entire time, the 3,600 miles, I instantly put back the original seat, and we've stuck with the original seat ever since. Right, so the original seat's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I know a lot of people swap that out. I think it's still a good idea to replace the original seat, but I haven't seen a need for it. Right, so the value of the seat is still there, and it will get you from point A to point B, and with minimal discomfort. I guess everybody has their own threshold of what that would be. But for me, it's perfectly fine. Since then, I've done, well, I guess really the rest of the 15,000 miles, I've done it on this seat. So, I've done quite a bit of riding on the regular seat, the factory installed seat. So the next thing is, let's talk about comfort. Let me just go there first. And the reason why I bring this up next is from a 15,000 mile review is the whole reason why we bought this bike was for comfort. And the ride is outstanding. I think it would be better with the original front forks and original back shocks, and I think it could be better yet still. But the comfort is exceptional. There's no question about it that this is an amazing vehicle to go multiple hundreds of miles on. So much so that my wife has actually knotted off on the back. She likes the current the limited seating where you have it kind of hugs you, right? Gives you that false sense of being safe, but constrained and cradled. Anyway, so she has that going for her, and she loves it. The floorboards are fantastic. If you get the Ultra Limited low, you don't get the floorboards, you get pegs. We used pegs in the Heritage Classic, and we were going to replace those pegs with floorboards because it was just killing her over a long period of time. So there's no way, based on that, I would go to a Ultra Limited low due to that. The second thing is, as far as comfort is concerned, is that for me, I'm being 5'6", the handlebar by default is a little too far away, just a hair. It hasn't actually stopped me I haven't changed it partly because I'm a little lazy, but partly because it's so minute of an inconvenience and discomfort that it's not even noticeable. Most of the time I ride, just one hand and the arm is at the right angle and everything like that. It's just when I use both hands, I can feel myself pulling forward just a little bit, so I'm hunching over a little bit instead of just sitting back and relaxing. So someday I will probably change the handlebars and move them back an inch, and then probably complain about that. But, as it is, the handlebars that they installed are great. the right height for me. I mean, for my body height, right? And even though it's designed for somebody taller, the torso height seems to be perfect. I don't have any problems with it. Um, more comfort things. The here in Colorado, the heated grips are invaluable. I would not buy another motorcycle unless I had heated grips installed, or they came by default. We went over last year in October. We went over one of these passes here, coming home from Durango. We went over a pass. It was like 11,000 feet, and we were in an absolute blizzard. I mean, the snow was going sideways, and visibility was terrible. We needed to get up and over and get down. This was Monarch Pass, and it was really bad. But the thing that bothered me the most wasn't the fact that there was the snow. It's just my hands were absolutely freaking freezing. And I've used this heated grips so many times, even up in Yellowstone when we were up there. You just never know when you're going to need some warmth around your hands. In fact, I use them so much so, and anytime it gets a little chilly, that I actually never wear my winter gloves anymore. I mean, first of all, the winter gloves restrict the heat coming into the gloves from the heated grips. So why would I want that? Second part is that my hands are comfortable enough even with the heated grips and the regular summer gloves that I wear. So I've just been wearing these all the time. Now, I may change my tune when winter actually falls upon us, but my experience is that this has been a godsend. I'm telling you, you gotta get heated grips if you live in any northern or higher elevation areas. Florida, I would not recommend it, but up here, absolutely. So more comfort. I think the fact that there's the entertainment center, whatever we want to call it, the little navigation and music and all that other stuff. I think that's fantastic. It helps with some of the boredom, and it also helps with communication. I'll talk about communication here in a minute because we've done some modifications to the bike to better communicate. Let's talk about the Infotainment Center. One of the things that I had to do is improve our communication when we're sitting on the motorcycle. So we bought the helmets that have Bluetooth in the helmet, and that's great. We each had them, so me and my wife could talk to each other while we're on the bike. Definitely the way to go. I mean, there's other alternatives. The bike itself actually provides wired communication if you want to. I just couldn't get myself to do that with today's technology, knowing full well that there was Bluetooth technology out there that could provide us with everything we needed without having to be tethered to the bike. Anyway, but that's still an option, right? If we new helmets down the road, maybe we'll change our mind. I don't know. Anyway, so we have the Bluetooth helmets, but when we got this bike, the other advantage was that you could do a CarPlay with the infotainment system. The problem was you had to be connected somehow to the infotainment system, and with the Bluetooth helmets, that you had to expand. You had to buy the wireless headset interface module, the WIM, and get that installed. So I bought that and I installed it. So from and that's helped a lot. I've had some serious problems with it. There are some still kinks in it. I'm still struggling trying to get it to operate perfectly, but it actually has been great for the ability to use CarPlay, especially on when I'm just riding by myself. It works great. I don't have any problems with it, but it's when you pair it with the second individual, and I think it's an antenna thing. I'll figure it out. Anyway, my point is that I would have liked to have had the WIM installed by default because, I mean, Harley Davidson sells Bluetooth enabled systems. And it should be part and parcel to the bike, right? Now the CVOs have it installed automatically or by in the factory, and so they've recognized that that's something that people will want for sure. But when you do the WIM and you have your Bluetooth, or even if you don't do the WIM and you connect in through a hardwire, the ability to use CarPlay is great, and I would strongly encourage anybody that is interested in using the infotainment system to expand and use that additional functionality. And you can flip back and forth between CarPlay and navigation. Like right now, I've got the bike's navigation because it uses satellite. The CarPlay uses my phone, which requires towers and stuff like that. So in a way, you have redundancy, which is cool. And then, of course, the ability to pipe all your entertainment through to your helmet and everything, and voice control, and the ability to ask. Like I can bring up using CarPlay. I can bring up Siri on my phone, and have it connect to bring up a phone call, and I can talk to somebody through my helmet. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's high tech for sure, which may not be what everybody wants, but you can always just turn your helmet off and not use any of that stuff. Which brings me to the other point, is if you turn your helmet off or you turn off the bike, you have to go through the configuration again when you turn both of those back on in order to initiate CarPlay again. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. But that's just an inconvenience. It's not a game stopper by any stretch of the imagination. So, and then other comforts too. The larger gas tank is necessary. It comes with a 6-gallon tank, and I had a 5-gallon tank on the Heritage Classic, and both of them have the same range, right? And so from that fact, you're dealing with the larger tank in front of you is a bit of an inconvenience, but because you're not getting another 40 miles out of it or something like that, especially with 2 up. So just be aware of that. The bike's heavier, like 300 pounds heavier than the Heritage Classic, so that's also going to reduce your gas mileage. So there's a whole bunch of factors as to why the 6-gallon tank is an absolute critical necessity, and it doesn't give you an advantage over other bikes. Just be aware of that. All right. The engine itself, so it's a 114 cubic inch engine. It's the same size as my Heritage Classic. So I had more pickup and go with the Heritage Classic being 300 pounds lighter than this Ultra Limited. However, I think it's a great engine for this bike. I've never had a time where I said, wow, I wish this was more responsive, or wow, it's just struggling to go up this hill with all our gear. It never happened, ever. And so it's a great engine for the bike. And I know that the previous bikes have had smaller engines, and there's been some issues. And the fact that this is a 114 with 6 gears is great. Let's see, other comforts. Storage, comfort for storage. So the Heritage Classic, I'm basing everything off of the Heritage Classic because it's like, for me, it was the next step up from the Heritage to this. So that's my best comparison. Now, I know people who have street glides and things like that may have a different concern about whether or not they should upgrade to an Ultra Limited from their street glide or their road glide. I mean, they can always just get the limited version of theirs and have kind of the same thing, but that kind of also negates some of the additional advantages, like in the Ultra Limited, the heads are water cooled, right? So I'm not turning my calves or my thighs into carnitas, right? So there's an advantage to having the Ultra Limited just from a pure scientific and comfort perspective. However, again, I'll just do the comparisons between the Ultra Limited and the Heritage Classic, because I think that's a normal progressive update. And so as far as storage is concerned, the saddlebags are larger on the Ultra Limited, and obviously you have the tour pack on the Ultra Limited. And there's a video I have on Packing Naked, and it basically talks about how we pack everything. And it's a lot more than what we had on the Ultra Limited. Or I'm sorry, it's a lot more than what we had on the Heritage Classic as far as room is concerned. But it does not negate the need to pack wisely, and that's why I refer to the Pack Naked video, because it goes into some of the specifics on how you have to condense and limit yourself to those kind of packing limitations that you have on the Ultra Limited, even though it's a lot more room than before. The big reason why I bring big reason why I bring this up is that the first trip we took to Florida, we overpacked. I mean, we had all this extra room, and we also bought. I talk about this in the video that I've mentioned, but we overpacked it. We brought a bag that we put on the top of the tour pack for additional storage. And it was great having that extra space. Oh man, it's awesome! But man, did it make it top heavy. And there were cases where it was very difficult to manage the bike. Of course, I was also brand new to this version of the bike. I've been riding bikes since the 70s, but having something this big, this heavy, and then having more weight up on top definitely was a challenge. And that's not why I dropped it. I didn't drop it from that. I dropped it way before I dropped it after. No, I dropped it before Daytona. Anyway, because of a big freaking sheet of ice. Still mad about that. Anyway, that was in a mall. I slipped on a sheet of ice that basically was 2 lanes wide and at least 2 lanes deep, and it looked like wet. It looked like water because we were everything had thawed out, and I thought I was safe. Anyway, it would have been nice for the mall to take care of that in advance. Anyway, I get off track. So we had all this extra stuff that we brought with, and this bike handled it fine. Performance-wise, it handled it fine. And I would not hesitate to throw the extra storage on the top of the tour pack if we needed it. Just be aware that by overloading this thing or loading it heavily, at maximum capacity, not overloading. Don't get me wrong here. I never overloaded it. I always stayed within the weight limits. But having it loaded to the gills posed the problem of where do you put your jacket when it's 90 degrees outside if there's no place to put it. And that's what we came across, is that there was no logical place for us to put our helmets or our jackets so that we could go inside the dealership and just hang out. So we're walking around with our jackets in a hot day, and it was consistent. We never had the ability to put anything away. So I guess the long story short is make sure you pack correctly, even though you have a lot more stuff or you have a lot more storage space than any of the other bike options out there. Just pack wisely. The other comforts, the stereo speakers, I never use them. So there's no real advantage to that from my perspective. I think it's a good setup. It gets quiet. It's hard to hear it when you're going 75, 80 miles an hour down the road. And so if you're looking to blare your speakers the entire time and not wear a helmet and all that stuff, I would strongly suggest getting an upgrade. And they have that option available. So Ultra Limited, that would probably be, if the stereo was something that I valued, I would absolutely 100% update it the first day I bought it, have it go under the warranty. But I don't use it, as I mentioned, because we use the helmets and all that stuff. But so it's not a necessity for me, which is why I'm not also um, attracted to the CVO, because they have the extra speakers and they have the speakers in the side bags and all that other stuff. But it's just not enticing to me because I don't use it. Comfort as far as the windshield is concerned. My wife gets hit with a lot of wind, and so I think the stock windshield is not the right windshield. For me, it's perfect. I mean, I don't get any buffeting. It goes over my head. I don't feel anything. In fact, it's probably too good because I don't get a lot of wind coming through the helmet and cooling off the inside of the helmet. So I have to crack the visor a lot. And so the aerodynamics of the windshield is perfect for me, but not for the wife. So we'll have to figure that out. At some point, we're going to have to replace that. Durability of the default tires, the ones that come with the manufacturer. Like I said, I had a problem with the front tire, but we're at 15,000 miles and I still haven't replaced the back tire, and it still doesn't need it. I mean, it's obviously showing some wear, but I check it regularly to see if there's any issues, and the design itself is fine. So 15,000 miles on the original set of tires, no big problem whatsoever. Heat. Let's talk about heat performance from the heat perspective. There's I think I'm going to say it right, EITMS, their engine management system to reduce the heat when you're at a full stop. That's great, no question about it. The problem is that when you're in a situation where you need that, once you move, the engine will kick back up the heat, and it's hard to get rid of that heat. I do not have highway pegs, and there have been times when my leg feels kind of roasted. I talked about the fact that this is a water-cooled heads, which has helped a lot with the heat. I know from the Heritage Classic that the 114 without that is much hotter. However, there's still a problem with, if you're at stop-and-go traffic, you're generating heat. The EITMS system doesn't fix it. It helps when you're idling, but it doesn't dissipate the problem, right? And so I need to get some highway pegs just for stop-and-go traffic so I can put up my right foot and get it out of the way of the engine, because that will work. I've tried, moving my leg, and I've discovered that if I had that, I would be fine to get my leg out of the way from the heat of the engine. I went from Colorado Springs to Seattle, Washington during their 100+ degree days. They had something called a heat cyclone or something, and we were dealing with some serious heat issues out there. And so I was up in that North Dakota, Washington area during that time, going through Idaho, and it was roasting, 100+ degrees. I felt like I was in Texas again during the August, and there were heat issues. Now I can't blame that on the motorcycle. The motorcycle handled fine. It didn't show signs of overheating, but the fact that the ambient air and the heat of the engine were both hitting me at the same time, the heat was just unbearable. And again, I didn't have highway pegs, and that would have been something that would have made a big difference. So, number one, if you're into stereos, replace the stereos when you buy it. Number two, if you're short, think about it. If you have experience, change the front shocks and the back shocks. And number three, put some freaking highway pegs on the thing from day one. You're going to want them. And so that's from a performance perspective. I think pretty much all of the things that I've identified. I think overall I'm extremely happy with the performance of this motorcycle. And I prefer to be on it, as everybody else on this watching this video is going to say. I'd rather be on this than in another vehicle, in a car or a truck or something like that, because the comfort's there, and even when it's raining, the shield does a great job. The lower fairings does a great job of reducing that. I haven't put on my rain gear once. I've worn leather chaps and my leather jacket, and I've been fine. I haven't gotten soaked, and because a lot of the aerodynamics of this Ultra Limited has just kept it all away from me, even during some really bad wind, or even during some really bad rain. Wind. Let's talk about wind. Everybody's saying, "Oh, you're going to get a road glide because it's better in the wind." That might be true. It may be true, but we were going between Amarillo and Colorado Springs earlier this year, and it was 40-mile-per-hour consistent, sustained winds with gusts up to 60 miles an hour. And I had a workout. High winds. Speaking of high winds. So I had a workout during that time, and that was for hours. That was pretty much the entire day, an entire day's worth of that, fighting that constantly. And of course, I'm also going to tell you too, there was some rain and there was some snow, so it was not a pleasant experience, but it wasn't overly challenging. I mean, it was a workout, but we made it. We didn't have to stop because it was too much. The wind, even though it was difficult, this bike was heavy enough. The gyros in it kept it up right for as best it could, and with just the right amount of pressure, we were able to maintain our location on the road. We didn't get thrown across the highway or anything like that. So it was still doable, even in 40-mile-an-hour consistent winds, with gusts up to 60. And yes, there was a lot of gusts up to 60. It was. The wife was definitely nervous on that piece, but handling it was actually not as bad as a lot of people think that a batwing fairing would provide, or would be advantageous to be in a batwing fairing compared to a road glide shark nose fairing. I don't think the fairing is an issue, and I don't think the mounting is an issue as far as where the fairing is mounted to, whether it's the handlebars or the frame. So I think it's more, my mind is that unless someday I ride a road glide and I ride it at 40-mile-an-hour consistent winds, I'm happy with the looks and the feel of the batwing fairing on the Ultra Limited, and I would stick with that. I just like the look of it and go with the looks. That's what I would say. Is it worth the value? Well, if you're buying an Ultra Limited, you're blowing money. There's no other way to say it. There's better options, cheaper options out there. I mean, you can get, if you're interested in just touring, I wouldn't say this would be the best bike to get. Okay, I'll have a video just on what's the best bike for touring, and it really depends on what kind of long distance you're talking about. Are you in it for short trips and lots of stops, or are you in it for trying to break records? There's a different bike for each of those. So, do I regret spending the money on the Ultra Limited? Absolutely not. It's one of those situations where when you first start on your first motorcycle and you think, oh, this is a great bike, but there's a better bike, right? And you constantly are thinking, oh, if I just had this one's more appealing, but I like the one I got, but man, that next one would be awesome. I reached it. I finally got to the point where I'm happy with this bike. I can't picture myself on a different bike. This is my last type of bike. I will always have an Ultra Limited because of what it provides me, and it matches my riding style perfectly. The fact that I like to go long distances, and I like to go with my wife, and I like to go for 2 weeks at a time, and I do the digital nomad thing. This is the bike, and so for me, it's not a waste because of all those additional factors. The fact that I use it as a primary vehicle, and that I do a lot of trips with my wife on, and we've obviously put almost 15,000 miles on it in less than a year. I mean, seriously, it's November and I bought it in January, so we're talking 10 months here with that. And so, I mean, it's there's no question about it from my perspective that this was the bike for me, and it was not a waste of money. But again, I'll say it, if all you're interested in is just doing long distance, there are cheaper options. Anyway, this is overall, this has been a fantastic bike. At 15,000 miles, I get the services done regularly. Even in the first 1,000 mile, I got that one done. And so, as long as, from my perspective, as long as you maintain your bike, and you put 15,000 on the first year, you will not be disappointed. There won't be any concerns about did you spend the money wisely if you're putting that kind of miles on it in 1 year. I think it's been fantastic. Would I do it again? Looking back, hindsight, let's do that. Based on what I know, would I pick anything else? And the only reason why I would say yes is because my wife found the snake venom paint job on an Ultra Limited 2021 a few months after we bought this one. And so the only reason why I would not buy this bike is because they came out later with a different color scheme that my wife absolutely loves, and I think is pretty cool. And so it's just a paint job, it's cosmetic. So if we can discount that, I would buy this again in a heartbeat with some minor changes, like I said. Think about the shocks, and then think about the radio if that's kind of the thing you're going to do, and absolutely put highway pegs on it as soon as you can. I still haven't put highway pegs on, so I'm being lazy, as I mentioned before, but it is something you need to do. So that is kind of a recap on the 2021 Ultra Limited, and if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure I left some stuff off that people are concerned with, like there's been some issues with sumping and things like that, and whether or not this model has that problem and not. I mean, we can talk about all that stuff. So just feel free to leave a question or comment in the comment section. Make sure you like this video if you like it. If you don't like it, don't do it. But also subscribe if you're interested as well, because again, subscribing is free, as we all know. No, doesn't cost you anything, and but it does help me get some traction with this channel, and it also tells me whether or not you guys are actually interested in the material that I'm providing. I'll continue to provide it, but having some sort of direction or input from you guys would be invaluable. So feel free to leave me a comment. Like I said, feel free to like, and then absolutely, if you can, subscribe. All right, thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time.